Have kept 7 cards, and we will start round number 1 of action here from Worcester with a Volcanic Island. Strub will play a Scalding Tarn. You're not going to find these Siege Rhinos here, at least I don't think so this weekend.
I would be surprised. I think there's probably some Siege Rhinos in the room somewhere, but maybe. I don't think we're going to be seeing them much on camera.
Wilson with a Tropical Island and just passing the turn. So a slow start here for Jacob. No manipulation, no Ponder, no Nimble Mongoose, no Tarmogoyf, nothing like that. So you have to imagine a very reactive hand here for Wilson.
Or possibly one that's sitting on Stifle here. Jacob playing 4 copies in his main deck, and it appears that he has a Stifle right here.
Well, he's going to take care of that Scalding Tarn, or at least try to. Of course, we are in Legacy. That means Force of Will is ever present. And it looks like there is one in Strub's hand. Of course, the question is, does he want to fight over this Stifle with a Force of Will?
And the problem here is now you start opening yourself up to Daze, you start opening yourself up to Spell Pierce. Temur Delver is very good at fighting counter wars against someone who's tapped out, and I think Justin here might be saying it's not worth the risk, even with Force of Will in hand. There's just too high of a chance Jacob can fight over that counter spell successfully.
Justin does not fight back, just plays an island, passes the turn back for Wilson, just a Volcanic Island. He passes the turn back. So the Stifle was good. It's a slow start here for both players, however. You expect some fast and furious action. We're in Legacy, but it's a slow start here to start round number 1. Our first real spell has been cast. It is a counterbalance. Wilson's going to try to Spell Pierce it. Very important for him to keep this card off the table.
Yeah, Jacob's deck just chock full of 1-mana spells. 8 of his 12 threats, Delver of Secrets, and Nimble Mongoose get swallowed up by this card. A lot of his counter spells, and with no pressure in play, he just has to fight over this.
Wilson with a draw and a passing of the turn. Strub will play another copy of Tundra. He'll try counterbalance again. That will resolve. Wilson will draw. Picked up a copy of Delver of Secrets. Finally has some way to get some aggression going. We'll see if it does resolve, however. There'll be a counterbalance trigger. That is a 2-mana spell. It's a counter spell. So that counterbalance will not take care of Delver Secrets, though we might see Strub have some interest in Force of Willing it. He will not. He'll just let it resolve. He'll draw the counterspell and we'll move back to his turn.
But this is a very land-heavy opening here for Jacob. No manipulation, as you mentioned earlier. And even with Jacob resolving the Delver Secrets, you get the sense he's behind right now. Justin here missing a land drop, which is good news for Jacob. If he can find a Wasteland, which appears that he does, he can maybe set Justin back. But Justin's in pretty firm control of this game right now.
There is a Wasteland. Here's an attack for 1 with the Delver of Secrets. Strub will take that 1 point of damage. He's going to go down to 18. We'll see if Wilson wants to fire off this Wasteland. He's going to take care of it in the upkeep. So there goes a Tundra. Strub will draw a card. Looks like it's a copy of Swords of Plowshares. You can see Strub's hand. There's a Supreme Verdant over there. A couple copies of Force of Will. That counterbalance that he did reveal, or excuse me, that counter spell that he did reveal to counterbalance, as here comes the Delver yet again. Unable to flip. The draw for the turn for Wilson was a Nimble Mongoose. Strange start here.
Yep, a little odd. I mean, Jacob was just trying to sit there on the Stifle for a little while, but the lack of manipulation here has made this a very awkward start here for Jacob.
Wilson with a really smart play here in the second main phase. He's leading out with a Lightning Bolt. The reason for that is because he drew a Nimble Mongoose. So if the Lightning Bolt gets countered, Jacob would not cast this Nimble Mongoose.
Exactly. He's doing it for information. If he loses the Lightning Bolt to a blind counterbalance flip, that's not good for him. Not the end of the world, though. And he gets to work with the information to see if his other 1 casting cost spells in hand, like Nimble Mongoose, are good for the time being.
Keep in mind, when Wilson did win the Season 1 Invitational, and of course at $10,000, his likeness on a card and invite to the Players' Championship, the Legacy deck that he chose was Temur Delver, and he went 8-0 with the deck.
Yeah, he is very proficient, a former Open Series champion with this deck. He's just great results. Jacob Wilson on the Open Series, this is the deck and the format you associate him with.
He's going to look for Delver again. It's finally flipping. It's going to be a Lightning Bolt. So now it's a 3-2 flyer. You take a look at Wilson's graveyard, 4 cards down there. Looking to work his way up towards 7 so that Nimble Mongoose can start attacking for real damage.
And last turn, I feel like Justin needed to do something with his mana. Either Swords of Plowshares or Counterspell, I think, should have been cast last turn. Because if he loses this game, it's likely to be with a lot of spells left in his hand. He just can't get to some revert in time or he gets burned out. So I think Justin needs to find some use of his mana here to bridge him until he can get to either Sensei's Divine Top to really lock up this game or for the appropriate mana for Supreme Verdict.
Well, he's going to finally cast that Swords of Plowshares, go after the Insectile Aberration. That's going to resolve. So Wilson will gain a little bit of life in the exchange, but for Strub, it's much more important to get that creature off the board.
He just can't take this hit now, especially now that it's for 3.
See Wilson's hand, there's another Stifle hanging out in there, a couple copies of Lightning Bolt. He'll send a Lightning Bolt upstairs, or at least try to. Strub will reveal to counterbalance its copy of Brainstorm. That is countered, and Brainstorm is actually a pretty big draw here.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, Justin really wants lane number 4 and gives him a lot of control with his counterbalance here if Jacob tries to cast some cheaper spells. You know, he can Brainstorm and set the appropriate mana cost on the top of his deck.
Brainstorm is the draw. You can see Strub's hand there. Some Force of Wills, a counter spell. There's also a copy of Dig Through Time hanging out over there as Daze is the draw here for Wilson. He'll serve in for 1 with that Mongoose. 1 damage will come across. 23-12 in favor of Wilson right now, but even though the life totals are in Jacob's favor, it doesn't feel like he's winning this game yet.
It's hard for Jacob to make a move here in the face of the Brainstorm because Jacob knows Justin can probably manipulate his hand in such a way to counter anything that Jacob tries to put on the stack right now. And it's only a matter of time here until Justin finds either a 4th land for Supreme Verdict or a Sensei's Divine Top, and then it becomes very challenging for Jacob to win the game.
Brainstorm being cast here at the end of Wilson's turn, so Strub is going to draw 3 and put 2 back. Doesn't look like he has a fetch land or anything, though.
No fetch land, and I don't think he has 6 cards in his graveyard. You see Dig Through Time in his hand, but I think he's only got 5 cards.
Yep.
And so he's looking at being Brainstorm locked potentially at least for 1 turn, and not having land number 4 for Supreme Verdict. So still a glimmer of hope here for Jacob.
Strub just figuring out how he wants to put the cards back. Looks like he's found something he's happy with. He'll draw one of those cards, of course. It's the counter spell. Still trying to work his way towards that Supreme Verdict. Obviously a great card in this matchup.
Yep. I mean, uncounterable Wrath of God is exactly what you would want.
Yeah.
You could invent a text box for the matchup. That's pretty close to it.
But 4 mana is tough to get to against Temur Delver. With Stifles and Wastelands floating around, as we've seen earlier in this game, Strub is definitely having some mana problems. Counterbalance number 2 is going to resolve.
I think I would have preferred there for Justin simply to discard to hand size. I think that's the reason he cast the counterbalance. But now the shield's down on counterspell, and if there's no 1-coster on top of the deck, Jacob has the possibility of resolving this lightning bolt you see on the stack. Maybe if he's found Ponder or Brainstorm, he can start firing those off. I think Justin would have been better served potentially just discarding to hand size.
Here's a Brainstorm. I think we're going to see Wilson probably daze this.
I don't think this daze is getting any better.
Yeah.
And he wants to get to threshold this turn anyway for his Nimble Mongoose. So this seems like a fine spot.
Jacob will cast daze. He'll pick up that volcanic island that he used for the lightning bolt.
And I think Justin may have set Dig Through Time as his card on top of his deck right now. So this counterbalance offers no defense for this flurry of spells.
That's part of the reason you're not seeing him immediately reveal the top card of his deck with his counterbalance, because he knows the top card of his deck.
Exactly.
And given that he knows the information, there's almost no reason to reveal this, because I'm with you, fairly confident that we are going to see Dig Through Time on the top of the deck. Now, this might be a time to actually use Force of Will finally, and he will removing Counterspell.
Yeah, and this is why I was not a fan of this counterbalance play. I would have much preferred to have a counterspell in hand and be using Force of Will, pitching counterbalance, rather than the sequence you're seeing right here.
Yeah, discarding a hand size when you have a spell to cast is strange, I suppose, but given how things have played out now, it looks like it may have been the proper play.
Yep. Although you can see Jacob's hand, I don't think offers him very much. I think he's looking at 2 copies of Stifle and then 3 lands.
Yeah. Jacob's hand is rubbish.
Yeah.
See, players are going to organize, let everything resolve here. Jacob will play a Polluted Delta and in for 3 points of damage, so nothing will resolve on either side. Stack is clear. The Mongoose is large. Jacob is clutching those Stifles tightly, hoping that they will do something.
There's still the hope that I could tag a fetch land or perhaps get a miracle trigger.
Yep.
So not necessarily dead, but Jacob, again, I think he's barely holding on this game, and if Justin can get to Supreme Verdict, he should be in really good shape.
Dig Through Time was the draw here for Strub. He'll just pass the turn back. Scalding Tarn the draw here for Wilson. In for 3 points of damage. Mongoose is going to try to take it home. Wilson's going to play a Scalding Tarn, pass that turn back. Strub is going to play a Dig Through Time now. I think I would have preferred this on the main phase.
Just to try to find potentially Sensei's Divine Top or just lands.
He needs lands.
Yeah. Because you can imagine Justin dig through timing and keeping 2 lands.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if that's the case, I agree with you that you're just better served main phasing it.
Or just land plus top. But in this situation, if I'm Justin, I'm on the hunt for lands. I need lands to be able to operate. I need another white source to be able to cast Supreme Verdict. Because if Jacob, for example, drew a Wasteland that turn,
it's a disaster.
It's an absolute disaster. He goes after the Tundra, and then Justin is just set back so far.
It does look like Justin here in this dig through time is looking at several lands. So we can take 1 or 2 if he's feeling so inclined. Very important if he's going to take only the 1 land. It cannot be a fetch land. He's already seen Stifle, and he doesn't want to have to fight over that kind of card.
I think if there's a basic plains in there, you're on the hunt for basics.
Yep.
Take a draw, another copy of Force of Will. And there is a basic plains. And it looks like he's reaching for Supreme Verdict. Now is a great time. Can't be countered, of course.
It's not getting better than this.
No, it's not.
Justin can't take another hit, so.
Wilson to draw, another copy of Nimble Mongoose.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Well, he's hoping. We can see Justin's hand, though. There are a lot of Force of Wills in there. Flooded Strand is the reveal to counterbalance. That's not going to get the job done.
Yeah, Justin can fight over this pretty easily.
Yeah, I like a Force of Will removing a Force of Will here.
Christian Regan, Patrick Fay. Could you please come
He also has another copy of Dig Through Time and Terminus in hand.
And, sometimes I sort of take this approach of, when you're in Justin's spot, of if I'm going to lose, it's going to be with cards in my hand. So even if there's a risk of me getting dazed or something, I just have to try to cast my cards.
I am very surprised he let that resolve.
Yeah.
Because if you're not Force of Willing that, what are you Force of Willing?
Exactly. I don't know what else there really is at this point.
Jacob's already used 3 Lightning Bolts.
Nimble Mongoose is especially dangerous because Swords to Plowshares is not an option to answer that card. I think at that point, Justin's just showing a lot of respect for Daze or what have you. But again, if you're in Justin's spot, if you're going to lose, it's going to be with 4 or 5 cards in your hand. So you just have to cast stuff and try.
Yeah, you don't get to take those cards to the next game.
Right.
Justin's going to attempt to sacrifice a fetch land. Jacob's going to use one of these Stifles. Take a look at the top card. It's an island.
A quick reminder at the conclusion of your match.
And now this is particularly bad for Justin because he's just gone to 4. Nimble Mongoose connects. That sends him to 1. And now these Force of Wills, they're not castable.
Yep. And he can't force now either. Here's an attack. Mongoose is going to put him down to 1.
And if the top card's a land, I think Justin's just done.
Yeah, he's locked out of this game because he knows the top card of the deck, as does Jacob.
Now, Justin appears to have Dig Through Time, which gives him some hope.
Sure. Well, he's going to get to look at the top 7 and take 2 with him. We know one of them is an island. But now all those Force of Wills that he has in his hand, one of which he took with the last Dig Through Time, is not going to help him.
Yep.
And his way out of this situation is very slim. It's really Terminus based.
Yeah, Dig Through Time is very powerful for miracles, but it's really only powerful over the next 2 turns most of the time.
Yeah.
Because you need to take, something like Sensei's Divine Top or Brainstorm and establish your miracles and then go from there. It's going to be hard for Justin to untap and do much of anything relevant unless he happens to draw something very good, or if he Dig Through Times into very specific cards and is able to set up a Terminus this turn.
Now, there are copies of Council's Judgment in the deck. There are 2 of those, and I suppose he could backdoor his way into Entreat the Angels, though, as we do know, Jacob does have another copy of Stifle in his hand to take care of the Miracle Trigger.
Entreat's going to be tough.
Take a look at that top card. It's a copy of Swords to Plowshares. This is the problem that we talked about.
Yeah.
Now, Sensei's Divine Top is in hand. So that will be deployed. He's going to spin that top. Dig Through Time, Island, and Scalding Tarn are the cards.
I don't think that's any help,
no.
And I don't think Justin can get out of this now.
And I promise Jacob is attacking next turn. Strub will just pass the turn back. Wilson will draw. It's a copy of Force of Will. Gonna play a land. It's time to attack. And that is going to do it. Jacob Wilson's going to win game number 1 here over Justin Strub. Teamer Delver up a game over Miracles. I think just a pretty large misstep by not force winning that Nimble Mongoose.
And, you know, what I mentioned before, if you're in Justin's spot, if you're going to die, it's going to be with a lot of cards in your hand. I think Justin may have actually died with a full 7.
Yep.
And you just, I understand you're worried about Daze or Spell Pierce and you trending your Force of Will there for something not very good, but you just got to try something.
Yeah.
In that spot, Jacob's deck is just the 12 creatures. Those are his best draws in that position. Nimble Mongoose especially so because it can't be targeted by Swords to Plowshares. You just got to try to counter it.
Take a look at the sideboard here for Strub. He's got a Grafdigger's Cage, a Pithy Needle, 2 copies of Blood Moon, a Rest in Peace, a Blue Elemental Blast, 3 Pyroblast, 2 Spell Pierce, 2 Vendilion Click, another copy of Supreme Verdict, and a Mountain. A lot of nice options here.
I definitely like bringing in the additional copy of Supreme Verdict. Very potent in this kind of matchup. I think the various Red Blast and Blue Blast are viable options here as well. I like bringing in the 1 copy of Rest in Peace because Nimble Mongoose and Tarmogoyf, very graveyard-centric threats. The 2 copies of Blood Moon, I can see going either way on that sort of thing. It is powerful if it resolves, and if Jacob doesn't have a board, it's basically a lock. On the other hand, it's a 3-mana card on your main phase, so it plays pretty poorly against Spell Pierce and Daze. And if Jacob has a board, it's possible you can resolve Blood Moon, but still lose the game because you can't enter the board in time.
What do we see on Wilson's side?
A Sulfuric Vortex, a Sulfur Elemental, 2 copies of Rough Tumble, an Ancient Grudge, 2 Pyroblasts, a Blue Elemental Blast, a Grafdigger's Cage, a Dismember, a Life from the Loam, a Flusterstorm, a Spell Pierce, 2 copies of Submerge. I think you're going to see more cheap counter spells coming here, like Spell Pierce, like Flusterstorm, the 2 copies of Pyroblast, and the 1 copy of Sulfuric Vortex. Very potent in this matchup. A challenging card for Miracles to beat if Jacob's able to resolve it in a game where he's not being hit by Entreat the Angels tokens.
Yeah. Well, of course, Jacob Wilson, as we have mentioned a couple times, is our Season 1 Invitational Champion. That means that he got himself a token this year, and there are a couple of ways to get this thing.
Yeah, congratulations to Jacob Wilson with his Monk token here, Monastery Mentor producing these. And you get this token a variety of ways. If you attend any of our large events, either our 20K Open Series events, like the one going on in Worcester this weekend, or any 5K Premier IQs, like the 2 we'll have going on tomorrow here, or the ones that are available at your local store, you get a Jacob Wilson token. Also, all orders from StarCityGames.com in excess of $5. But Columbus is right around the corner. We're going to have a new invitational token, a new champion soon. So if you want to get your Jacob Wilson Monk token, either sign up for one of our large events or place an order from StarCityGames.com today.
I got myself a Jacob Wilson token a little earlier this morning.
We'll talk about that in a bit.
Brokered a deal.
A little tradesy.
That's right, and I have myself a 1/1 Monk token with prowess, so thank you, Jacob, for being so kind.
What you had to give up?
I'm not telling. It's a bit of a secret.
We'll get into that in a little bit.
It may have been a Cedric Phillips player card, trading card. Jacob drives a hard bargain, but that's okay. I feel like I may have won out on the deal.
I mean, this is the first run of the tokens, of our SCG Live commentator tokens. Wouldn't you have been better served just placing an order from Star City Games for $5 and getting your token? Seriously.
Probably. It's all right.
You could have just bought like 2 booster packs or something.
Look, I knew what I wanted and I got it. All right, I have a Jacob Wilson token. That's what I wanted and I got it.
Yeah, something to be said for immediacy, I guess. But
that's right.
I think you got the wrong end of that trade.
In this world that we live in, I want it now.
Yep.
Strub will be on the play here for game number 2 against Wilson. One of the best young players in the game. Even had a documentary done about him on Vice.com recently, because he's going to take a mulligan. If you have not seen that, I recommend that you do. It was very, very well done.
One of the rising stars.
Indeed. Always fun to watch him play, especially when he's playing this deck, because he is so very good at playing it.
And this, for my money, is Legacy's best deck. This is what I would play in a tournament.
Yeah, a lot of talk this week about what the best deck was to play this weekend. It was really between some sort of Delver variant, Miracles, or Omnitel.
One could argue with the amount of Miracles going on, Teamer Delver maybe is not the best choice because I don't think the matchup's very good. But
sure.
As you saw there in game 1, with some skillful navigation, even a poor draw from Teamer Delver can still sometimes get it done.
Alex Mullins, Casey Brefka to the stage, please.
Gonna take a long look at this hand. We are underway. It's Scalding Tarnish start. Little dangerous not sacrificing that fetch land. Could really walk himself into a stifle here.
Yeah, it's so important not to get tagged by stifles early on in the game. Unless you're trying to trap him and you have some sort of blast effect or cheap counterspell set up so you're ready to fight that battle. I think you're just better served cracking the fetch land straight away. Because Miracles is very mana hungry. I mean, eventually he needs to get to Entreat the Angels, and he may need to get to Supreme Verdict as well. And if your lands are getting tagged there, it makes it hard to get to those cards. It really amplifies the power of Wasteland as well.
Going to start by sacrificing 1 turn. And Wilson says,
Hold up.
I have a response. Strub wants to sacrifice this fetch land in response to Wilson's fetch land. So we got some fetch land activations on the stack. Depends on how things were worded, if things were given the green light or not. So we'll see.
Now, for those of you viewers who are familiar with Standard, you're used to fetch lands just sort of being like, all right, crack your Windswept Heath and go get your plains or your forest.
Yeah.
In Legacy, because the graveyard is such a resource, because of Stifle, you often see these pretty complicated stacks get built up just over the sacrificing of fetch lands.
So now we have some stacks, and Jacob's actually going to be here and organize the stack. So step 1 is a Stifle. So Stifle is the top card on the stack, targeting Scalding Tarn. That will resolve. Now Jacob will resolve his Flutter Strand activation. Jacob says, not yet. Not just yet. You don't get to resolve your Scalding Tarn yet. How about another Stifle? And now Justin might be forced to Force of Will this, removing a card, just so he can have a second mana. And this is kind of what we talked about at the early stage of the game. Against this deck, as now we have a Force of Will War. This is all over lands, by the way, which is what makes this format great.
It makes it something.
You gotta
makes it something.
Yeah, you gotta crack your fetch lands.
Yeah, you can't mess around.
You gotta crack them, especially when you're on the play.
Yeah, and Jacob willing to fire back there with that Force of Will, in part because of Tarmogoyf in hand, just has no white mana.
Yep.
And maybe if that lands a Tundra, maybe Jacob pumps the brakes on that fight a little bit and saves the Force of Will for something else. But it's just so likely Justin now is stuck up with a single island and can't interact with the Tarmogoyf, which is exactly what you see right here.
And now Jacob's going to get his licks in while he can. Tarmogoyf's going to come across here. It's only a 2-3 right now. Strub will draw a card. Strub an island. That is a counterbalance. That's going to get hit by a Pyroblast. That's going to build the graveyard a little bit too.
Gets an enchantment in there, which is good news. Justin's still without white mana.
Wilson going to serve in for 3 points of damage now. He picked up a copy of Spell Pierce for his draw. He'll pass the turn back over to Strub. Jace the Mind Sculptor. Very powerful card, but can't be cast right now. We head back Wilson's way. Draw cards, copy Nimble Mongoose. I like playing that pre-combat in case it gets countered. That'll put a creature in the graveyard. Jacob knows that, though. He's been doing this forever.
Exactly.
Coming across for 3.
And he can be very aggressive deploying these creatures. No threat of Terminus right now, even off the top, because Justin's still without white mana, though. A Tundra here gives him some sign of hope.
Yes, very important draw there for Strub. Some way to make white mana. He'll have to pass the turn back. Wilson will quickly untap and take a draw. You take a look at Wilson's graveyard. Looks like there are 6 cards down there. Jacob will do a quick check. See if there's a way for him to add a 7th as he comes across here with both his green creatures. He'll just pass the turn back. Looks like it was a hit for 4. Strub will draw. There's an Arid Mesa.
And you can see Justin with Blood Moon in hand, and this is sort of the bad situation for Blood Moon in the matchup. Is you can put it into play and just die on the way back.
Yep. Strub going to sacrifice that Arid Mesa. Curious what he's going to be searching up. Does not look like he has a copy of Supreme Verdict in hand at this point. Not sure what card's going to save him in this situation.
I think overall it's fine for the Miracles player to be bringing in Blood Moon when they're on the play in this matchup.
Sure.
I think on the draw it's not really palatable, but you're seeing the disaster scenario. A lot of viewers may ask, isn't it just a 3-mana lock? Why would you even consider not bringing this card in? Well, sometimes the games look like this.
Yeah.
And Blood Moon's just no help.
We have watched too many games where Blood Moon comes too late.
Or you're getting pushed off of your red mana because your fetch lands are getting stifled and you can't cast it.
Here's an attempt at Council's Judgment. Flusterstorm. We'll go after that. Both copies, which means that Mr. Strub has to pay 2 more mana to counter that. He cannot. Just has an island available, has to pass the turn back. Tarmogoyf's a little bit larger thanks to a sorcery being in the graveyard. Untap, attack. and that is going to do it. Jacob Wilson is going to win this game and match here over Justin Strub, 2-0. Teamer Delver will take care of miracles. And no, Wilson does not have any buys coming into this tournament, not on our top 32 of the leaderboard. He might be the most dangerous player in the room.
He's got to be. If he's not at the top of the list, he's very close to it. Jacob has had an incredible run here the last year or two of playing Magic, and on the Open Series, his performances in Legacy with this deck have been, again, near the top of the list of any Legacy player that we have in our tournaments.